Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Beer and Money. My name is Ryan Burklo.
And I'm Alex Collins.
The giggly Alex Collins is here. So the last couple episodes, Alex has not been on, so I'm happy that he is back. We've had a couple guests on the episode or on the podcast, so hopefully you tuned into those. We had a great one, Alex, you missed with Katie Ludwig, estate planning, which was really, I hope was a really good one. So, but for today's episode, we're going to talk about what metrics you're using to analyze or to inspect how financially healthy you are.
Yeah, well, and this all comes from a conversation that you had that, as you were describing it, it's like, yep, that totally checks for exactly how most of America does this. And yeah, let's have a conversation around it.
Yep. So let's before we dive in, Mr. Collins, what are you drinking right now?
I am drinking a New Belgian triple, so it's not quite an IPA, but I do love Belgian beers. And New Belgium does a good job with this. It is going to punch you in the face a little bit at 8.5. So we'll see how well I do towards the end of the episode. But
This is going to be a really good episode. I can't wait.
But yeah, what are you drinking today, buddy?
So I'm drinking Dragon's Milk.
Mm.
So Diane was at Costco and saw bourbon barrel aged and thought of me, which, gotta love my wife when she thinks of me, especially on bourbon. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. Anyways, this is a stout, 11% alcohol. I love bourbon aged stuff. It's winter. Matter of fact, it's technically snowing outside my house, which is really interesting considering it's 39 degrees outside. But this is one of my favorite stouts that is out there. So have you had this one before, Alex?
I have. You're a much bigger fan of stouts than I am, but as far as stouts go, it's a good one.
Yeah, you can definitely taste the bourbon. A little bit of sweetness to it, but also a coffee hint to it. So I'm a big fan. So definitely check them out. Again, that was Dragon's Milk bourbon aged stout. All right, so let's talk about today. So, I was thinking about there are several things went through my mind as it normally does through the weekend, and one of the things that entered my mind was this podcast that I listened to. It's called Front Row Dads, and it's just a podcast for dads out there to become, really, be the best fathers, spouse, human beings that they can become. And they were interviewing a business owner who has done rather well for himself. He's based out of Canada, and he said this line in the podcast that really kind of struck me. And the line was, a lot of business owners, when they go to measure how well they're doing in the business, they might be measuring or not even, or they're looking at the wrong metrics in terms of how well they're doing. And what he said was, oftentimes top line is vanity, bottom line is sanity, and cash flow is reality. And to put that into layman's terms, because I realize that our listeners aren't business owners, top line is just like the revenue coming in the door. Okay. And he's measuring that by, like, that's the vanity, right? They think that is what makes them look good, is that revenue number coming in the door. The bottom line is the net, right? After expenses, like the profits, essentially. Now, the profits could be thrown back in the business. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's actually cash flowing well. Because if it's a product based and they're just having to take those profits and then buy more product, it may not be a very good cash flow free business, which is where he talks about the reality is how well is a cash flow doing in the business, which is a much different measure. And after that, it just like hit me as like, okay, this is the same thing is true on the personal finance side, Alex.
Oh, very much so. And like, this is like so much like the terms wind up being a little bit different. But at the same time, not really.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the gross income, that's kind of showing off what we can buy. The sanity is, hey, can we still pay our bills every month? And then reality is like, hey, how much are we actually saving? I mean, there have been, I think, about 4 or 5 different examples that I can think of recently of stuff going on either in my life or in, family's life or in friends' lives where it's like, okay, are we showing off the top line number? Are we, able to like pay our bills, or like where are we at in terms of ability to pay our bills? And then like, okay, what is reality? And hopefully reality is above vanity. But reality is that most of the time it's somewhere between vanity and sanity. If it's below sanity, whew, we get in trouble in a hurry.
Well, and it's hard, right? And you and I have had plenty of episodes where we discuss the vanity metric, right? Like, do you really care about the 911 Porsche that you just bought, or is it really what you think other people see?
Yeah,
If you're a car person, great. But if you bought it just so that other people can see your wealth, and we could argue whether or not that's wealth or not, but in some aspect, it might just be you trying to show off. And I'm not saying that it sounds like it's a pure negative thing. I do think that I've gone back and forth on this, and I know this isn't the title of today's episode, Alex. I'm already going down a rabbit hole, but I do
shocker.
right. But as human beings, let's just call it what it is. Both you and I have an ego or a vanity aspect that um, we kind of like to show off, and it's not I don't think it's a negative thing. It might just be an ego rather than vanity. Now that I talk about it out loud, but sometimes I think, as long as it's within reason, if you buy the nice watch and it makes you feel better about yourself and you're still a good person and you're still doing well, that Rolex vanity piece isn't necessarily a negative. What are your thoughts on that, Alex?
I mean, again, it goes back to how you and I do financial planning, which is make sure that you protect your income, make sure that you're saving 20%, and then whatever you want
Yeah,
to spend the rest on,
whatever.
awesome. Like if it's a watch or travel or a new house or a new car or whatever else, as long as you adhere to the first two rules, cool. Go enjoy the rest of it and do whatever the heck makes you happy. I mean, hopefully it's stuff that actually makes you
Well, that's what
happy.
that's what I'm getting at there is does it actually make you happy? And that's the piece that I argue, maybe because I just get into the weeds when it comes to my personal stuff with this, where I argue like, okay, does that trip to Hawaii that I take every August, like, is that a vanity thing for me, or is that something I really enjoy? And I, I think it's
Knowing what I know about you, like it is something you really enjoy because I get to hear about it. I get to hear about like how you enjoy hanging out with your son, how you enjoy getting to hang out with your wife and your daughter, how you come back relaxed and recharged, and it winds up making a huge difference in your mental health when you come back from that. And when you don't get it, like it makes a huge difference. So
yeah.
no, that's not just you. That's not just vanity. That like at least from my experience, like and like don't get me wrong, but like there are definitely times when I'm jealous that you get to spend 2 weeks there, um, especially with the year that we've had in the last year where we didn't get a chance to take a break.
Right. Yeah, so it's something that I constantly look at, and I think it's helped my personal financial situation, which kind of pivoting into today's metrics, right? So I'm constantly, not constantly, right? I don't, this isn't a daily thing, right? My wife and I go through, and I know it's not something you go through daily, although you might have a spreadsheet knowing you. Um, the analytic attorney
Chances
here
are I
does.
do.
Yeah. But my wife and I do have these conversations at least once a month where we're analyzing, what we do with our money. And when it comes down to the metrics to actually inspect how financially secure you are, we think some of the top three metrics are the following: how much free cash flow you have, how much liquidity you have, and how much of your income is protected. And we're going to get into the weeds as to why we think those are the top three, and maybe defining those three too, because I think that our industry loves to have different definitions for saying the same thing possibly, and so we need to make sure that we're on the same page there.
Well, and like how many people actually understand what free cash flow is, what liquidity truly means
Yeah.
and how to define how much of their income is protected.
Yeah. So let's dive into this, Alex. Let's talk about what we mean by free cash flow.
Sure. So free cash flow is kind of that concept that we were just talking about, which is, hey, how many dollars do we have after we've protected our income fully, we're saving 20%, and we're taking care of all of our bills? Like, what is that extra number? And like we talk about this in terms of like Americans being goldfish, where like whatever comes into our bank account is we figure out a way to spend all of it or virtually all of it. And like, how do we know this? Well, from hundreds, if not thousands of examples where people will say, oh, well, I've got a savings account and I'm putting money systematically into it. Okay, cool. How much do you have in your savings account? Oh, I've got like $25,000 in it. Okay, great. How much are you putting in? Oh, I'm putting in $1,000 a month. Great. What was in there last year? 30. Okay, so you saved $12,000 and you went backwards 5? Like, what happened? Oh, well, we went on this amazing trip. Got it. Well, you're not actually saving that money. That's not free cash flow. Like, you're using that money. So, like, making sure that we create the proper definitions for things.
And it's so interesting. So you bring up, Alex just presented at an event for it's a bunch of professionals in our industry, where the goal of it is to go there and be better, so that we can obviously help our clients. And Alex presented on the very subject he was just bringing up around that goldfish. Like, I love the example that you bring up, because as Alex said, like, goldfish, they get as big as their tank or their bowl is.
Yeah.
Right. And so many of us are attached to our income, right? Like, and as big as our income gets, that's almost how much we start to spend.
Yeah.
And it goes into that free cash flow where I was constantly in the conversation I was just bringing up with you around like vanity and, ego. And it always comes up. And so it's a constant, it should be at least a yearly conversation that you're having with your spouse, because I don't know that it ever goes away because of the world that we live in.
Right. Well, one of the questions that I posed to the audience in that, which this was, a group of financial advisors that live in my area, I asked if they were my competition, and like everyone said no. And I said, okay, great. Who is our competition? And they didn't really have answers. Well, they had some answers, but like ultimately it's Amazon and Costco and Nordstrom's and REI and like all the places that we spend money, the
Yep.
golf course, the car dealership, wherever else we're spending money. That's really who our competition is. And like, it was cool to see the aha moment when we started talking about like, okay, so how do we increase free cash flow? Like, can the average person go from a 5% savings rate to a 15% savings rate by doing this? Even if they're making good money? No. Okay,
Yep.
cool. So how do we do that? Well, we need to put systems in place. And so we kind of walked through some systems, and people were like, it was amazing how many people I had come up to me afterwards and were like, oh my God, thank you. That is amazing.
So we're touching on the free cat. We're not touching. We're actually really going into the weeds with free cash flow. That, like, right, that's the extra money that we've got to really kind of do whatever we want with. And most people don't even know what that figure even looks like, because they're not measuring. They have no idea what's actually entering their world and what's leaving their world. And so we've actually recorded a podcast. We advise our clients, and what Alex actually spoke into at this event was a wealth building account. And so if you go to episode 186, if you go to beerandmoney.net, go to episode 186, we talk about building a wealth building account. That's the system that Alex just brought up that we talk to our clients about, to help capture or understand what your free cash flow number looks like, which will in turn help you analyze or inspect how financially secure, healthy you are.
Yeah.
Which then takes us to number 2, liquidity.
Yeah. At one, liquidity is really just making sure that like, okay, how much pain can we go through? How much unexpected things can occur before we start having an issue paying our bills? Like we just talked about how most Americans are goldfish, where they're essentially living hand to mouth, and they don't have proper reserves built up. Proper reserves or emergency reserves, whether it's inside of a banking institution, whether it's inside of another financial institution, whatever the structure is that you have liquid access to, like, okay, we need to make sure that we've got, at a minimum, 3 times your monthly expenses. In an ideal world, we get to the point where we've got 12 months worth of income that's saved up in a liquidity type structure. We oftentimes recommend going significantly above that, depending upon where somebody's at in their growth, how close they are to retirement, how much money they think that they may need access to, and oftentimes we'll maybe ask some questions that that causes people to maybe change some of these views and thoughts.
Yeah, what's interesting about that is when we talk about liquidity, we sit down and I don't care what kind of money you make. I swear it's most of the time, like even if we're talking to wealthier business owners, like their money's tied up in two places. One, their business, two, retirement accounts,
3, real estate.
three, real estate, right? Which I kind of put into the business aspect, but I can see why it's separate also. And even in that, if you're not a business owner, where's most of your money? It's in your home or it's in your retirement accounts. And we all want, like, how many people, like, if we were to poll a room and we were to say, how many of you want to have a flexible lifestyle or a flexible life? I don't think we'd have a hand not go up.
Yeah, every hand's going to go up on that question.
And if we went further with that conversation, said, how many of you want to have money sit in the sidelines when opportunity arises? You don't have to think about your job, everything else that's going on. You can just act on it. And of course, I think most hands would go up again. So, and we can keep beating this dead horse, but the fact of the matter is everyone understands liquidity and why it's important, yet no one, or I should say very few people, actually have it.
Yeah.
And it's because, we got the talking head saying every dollar should be going in retirement accounts. And by the way, this isn't a beat up session on retirement accounts. This is a conversation around, okay, everything we hear people say that they want, yet a lot of them can't actually get it until they retire, which I don't think is what most people want nowadays anyways.
It really isn't.
The traditional retirement thing, for the most part, is dead. I don't think people want to work for 40 years to then start living their life.
Well, and like I had one client put it this way to me: Alex, when do I have the ability to cut back on my work? I
Mm.
don't want to have to work. Like when can, like she basically said, "Hey, my husband is going to work because that's who he is. Like I want him to not have to, and I want him to be able to take time away from what he does. But when do we have the ability to choose to stop working or choose to cut back?" That way, and like really, she had no idea what that would look like. And so it's like, okay, yeah, we can absolutely help with that. Let's dig into it and start working on some of the details.
Yep. Having liquidity is a key piece of that. Now, another piece of that, which that's not for today's episode, but a big piece of that is like how much money are you spending and is it money well spent? Like that's a whole nother episode, but liquidity is a key piece here, which is number 2, which then takes us to number 3, which probably should have been ranked number 1, but I put it at number 3 because we always talk about it as number 1, Alex. So I purposely put it as number 3.
It's also where like people will think about it as number 3 because the first 2 are more top of mind for the average person. Number
Yep.
1 being vanity, number 2 being sanity, number 3 being the reality.
Yep. Which is how much of your income is protected. Like if you took a 20% pay cut today, how would that affect your life? Let alone if you lost all of the income coming in the door, how would that affect your life?
Yeah. Again, the same client that I was just talking about rather, asked the question, "Hey, Alex, when do people typically stop paying their disability insurance?" And my answer was, "Oh, that's very simple. As soon as you don't need it."
Yep.
And they were like, "Huh."
As soon as you're not reliant upon the income.
I'd never thought about it that way. And I was like, yeah. And like, the thing is that like, hey, if you can cut back to only needing half your income, great. We only need half the protection. And so in all likelihood, it's going to get stair stepped off, but you're in control of it. It's whenever you don't need it. And like, you could see this just weight come off of her shoulders.
Yeah, let's just face it. Like, and we talk about income protected, I know insurance is normally the first thing I think most people think of, right? If you get sick or injured, if you die prematurely, there's other aspects like income protection is also just as important when you get to retirement, which is a whole nother conversation. For today's episode, I think we're talking about the standard, like getting a paycheck from an employer type of income protection, not
protecting cash flow.
Exactly. And so, but the fact of the matter is the income coming in the door, that is what's allowing you to live the life that you want.
Yeah.
So if you don't have that protected, how comfortable can you possibly be? Well, it's funny, Alex, you and I both know this person. His name is Rob. He's in our study group. He posted on social media, and I absolutely loved the post. He was going in, he's having surgery, and he was talking about how he has zero concerns about finances. He has zero concerns about taking days off of work. He has zero concerns except focusing on himself. And the reason he can do that is he's done these 3 steps essentially. He's got his income protected. So if something really goes K-wire, he's good. He's got the liquidity. He's got the free cash flow. Whereas how many people get to go have that type of surgery and not stress about maybe the medical bill, maybe, right? Like we can go down the rabbit hole in this instance.
I mean, imagine something going wrong during the surgery. Like, I don't know how many stories you and I have heard about like, oh my God, this went wrong, or that went wrong, or my knee was never the same. My back was never the same.
Yep.
Like, I woke up different, like whatever the case may be. Like, and those stories are terrifying.
They're terrifying. And it really hit me too, because, I've been blessed enough where I haven't had that personally, where I'm having to go see a doctor and get surgery or whatever that is. I've had family members go through that, and that's taught me a ton. But what really hit me is, and he said it himself, he didn't think twice of any of the insurance cost that he was currently paying in that moment, and really forever at that point, because now he truly understands and feels that actual, and I'm putting it in quotation marks for those of you who aren't watching on YouTube, peace of mind. Because that peace of mind thing, especially in our industry, we'd love to talk about how we give clients peace of mind. But until you truly go through an experience where you actually have that, it's hard to actually understand it.
Oh, for sure. Like, and it's crazy to think about, like, oh, hey, where's this at? Like, how much liquidity, how much free cash flow, how much my income's protect, like all of these questions whenever something pops up. And it's amazing to be able to sit down and have those conversations with clients. Like, oh, no, you've got access to this, and this. Oh, I didn't realize that I did. Oh, well, okay, I feel better.
As we keep talking about this, Alex, there's certain things. Put myself in our listeners' shoes for a second, and maybe one of them might be thinking, "I'm surprised that rate of return isn't one of the metrics."
I mean,
I'm surprised that investment, like I'm going through different things in my head of why, different things that we would normally hear as a quote unquote, metric of seeing how financially healthy you are. And what's really funny is, ask yourself this question: when you're retired, or actually when you're all done with life, did rate of return really actually matter? Or was it the fact that you were able to have the cash flow needed to live your life? You were able to have the peace of mind to have time with your family. You were able to make sure that your family was protected in the event that something went haywire. You were able to go to your daughter's wedding.
It's all of the memories that you created and the legacy that you left behind, whether that was you being there, like you just mentioned, going to your daughter's wedding, or being able to be there for whatever milestone, whether positive or negative. And then what you did to stay in the mind of the people that you love and care about after you're gone.
Yeah, I don't know many people that are like, man, I'm so glad I got that rate of return so that I can retire. I'm so glad I got that rate of return. So I've got all this wealth that I'm going to leave behind in my family. Like no one ever says that. No one.
Well, it also comes down to a control component, Ryan. Like, how much control do we being either A, financial advisors, or B, individuals, have over rate of return?
Yeah. None.
I would
I
say
mean,
some.
you can allocate appropriately, but from the standpoint of what the market does, we have zero control.
Right. We're beholden to something else. And so thinking about it, worrying about it, stressing about it, focusing everything on it, like, okay, cool. That's kind of like saying, like, focusing on your, longevity. Like, none of us know how long we're going to get. Tomorrow is not promised for any of us. And so it's all about trying to control the things that we can control. And those are things like, how much money do we save? How much access to liquidity do we have? How much of our income is protected? It's the things that we can control. Those are the proper metrics, not things that we don't control that
And
are
I'm
out of
gonna,
our control.
yeah, and let me interrupt you real quick here. And it's really, I'm hoping hitting home for our listeners too. All of those things are in control that you just mentioned. Some people will hear budgeting. It's all about money. And what I'm hoping is starting to come across is no, handling all of those control pieces allows you to actually live your life the way that you want to live your life.
It's all about choice.
Exactly.
Like,
And that's what people want.
which choices
Exactly.
are you going to make? And how much control do you want to take over the choices that you make?
So, as a real quick review, the three important metrics to use to inspect on how financially healthy you are is free cash flow, liquidity, and income, how much of your income is protected, which takes us to the question of the day, Alex.
Our question today is, how is it that you're inspecting your financial health? How often are you doing it? And what are the metrics that you're using to take a look at it?
So head over to beerandmoney.net, and there's a spot at the top where you can hit contact us to either answer that question, or if you have questions that are bubbling up from today's conversation, it's a great spot to email us with that question. Another piece that I've never mentioned on these episodes, there's also a link to the YouTube channel. So if you just go to beerandmoney.net, go to the link for the episode that you're listening to, and then you can take it over to the YouTube so you can see Alex's pretty face. Look, we started this podcast to help you think differently about your money so that you can live the life that you want and have choice. So we hope this episode was valuable for you. And as always, Mr. Collins.
Cheers.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not to be construed as tax, legal, or investment advice. Although the information has been gathered from sources believed to be reliable, please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information should be relied upon only when coordinated with individual professional advice. Guest speakers and their firms are not affiliated with or endorsed by Park Avenue Securities, Guardian, or Quantified Financial Partners, and opinions stated are their own. Guardian, its subsidiaries, agents, and employees do not provide tax, legal, or accounting advice. Consult your tax, legal, or accounting professional regarding your individual situation. All investments and investment strategies contain risk and may lose value. This material is intended for general public use. By providing this content, Park Avenue Securities LLC is not undertaking to provide investment advice or a recommendation for any specific individual or situation, or to otherwise act in a fiduciary capacity. Please contact a financial representative for guidance and information that is specific to your individual situation. Ryan and Alex are registered representatives and financial advisors of Park Avenue Securities, LLC, OSJ 200 Market Street, Suite 1850, Portland, Oregon 97201. Phone number 503-221-1226. Securities products and advisory services offered through Park Avenue Securities, member FINRA, SIPC. Financial representatives of the Guardian Life Insurance Company of America, Guardian, New York, New York. Park Avenue Securities is a wholly owned subsidiary of Guardian. Quantified Financial Partners is not an affiliate or subsidiary of Park Avenue Securities or Guardian. Ryan Burklo, CA Insurance License Number 0K24924. Alexander Collins, CA Insurance License Number 0H24806. Pinpoint number 2024-170126. Expiration February 2026.